Namaste, Jai Bharat. Do you think by any chance that nobility can be inherited? I repeat the question. Do you think by any chance that nobility can be inherited? Just by virtue of one's parentage being noble, in the real sense of the term, not namesake. Can that be the case that his generations will continue to be noble by inheriting nobility from the parentage? Obviously, the answer should be no. It can be. The Bharatiya structure of society, which is structured into varnas, four varnas, varnashrama dharma, what we call, that is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and of course the Panchamas. People hardly speak about the Panchamas because it becomes less intelligible to understanding for people. So the Bharatiya structure of social structure into varnas, of course, people wish to confuse varna into caste, which is wrong. Obviously wrong. Varnas are quality concepts. So do you think the quality can be inherited? In Bharatiya knowledge tradition, in Bharatiya social structure, nothing can be inherited. It's not the case that just by virtue of your father is a Brahmana, you are automatically a Brahmana. That, of course, the theory contradicts. Practically, it had been going on, and that's a problem also. That's a different story. But theoretically, it can't be inherited. No quality can be inherited. Quality has to be acquired. Clear, as crystal clear as that. Undoubtedly, that's the case. So obviously, we don't think that nobility can be inherited. In the context of nobility, it's most natural that one can attain nobility to a reasonable extent if one is sensitive and sincere and conscious. Apart from that, it's not the case that nobility can be inherited. But the British still thinks that nobility can be inherited. This, of course, as I understand, they have the House of Lords, which are inherited. Which is inherited. I don't have to speak more. They still think nobility can be inherited. That confuses all problems. That creates all kinds of problems for them. That will make them think superior to somebody. I came across some people who think of blue blood and all kinds of things. Now, of course, if someone comes to interact with me, they get it from me. There's a different thing. But there are still people, really not much educated kind of people. And those who are educated hardly think in these terms. That's always there. But there are people who continue to have this kind of false consciousness, borrowing the expression again from the communists. They continue to live in this kind of false consciousness that there's some kind of superior, and just they have inherited nobility, etc., etc. That's a funny kind of thinking. So nobility cannot be inherited. That's precisely what the social structuring in Bharata taught us. You can't inherit Brahmanya, and you can't inherit anything. All these things have to be achieved, acquired. So nobility has to be acquired and achieved. Of course, if your parents are noble, if you're in a noble family, they're genuinely noble. These circumstances or the context in the family can really facilitate nobility within you, provided you're receptive. It can only be facilitated, not imparted. You have the surroundings, you have the circumstances really ready, because through your life, demonstrate a kind of nobility to your generations, posterity, and they are able to observe and then sometimes take it and sometimes unable to take it. So this much is there. So there's a possibility that in a context of a given value system, there's a possibility that it is rather easy for one to acquire it because he has things in front of him. But on the other hand, where the context is blank, one really has to go newly in search and then acquire it all by himself, which becomes definitely more genuine. There one has to go. Here the person has got things presented around him. Apart from that, there is no necessary connection between nobility and nobility getting inherited by the followers of the children. There is no necessary connection. It's not necessary that nobility can be inherited. But unfortunately, if a system thinks that nobility can be inherited, no one can correct them also. They will continue to go on like that because they think tradition is something which can be questioned. Tradition, of course, is tradition. You have to respect, but it must be questioned when has to be questioned. I am talking about the one branch of philosophy of Bharat, the Mimamsa. Just because something is said in tradition, just because something is taught, it's not the case that you cannot question it in other point in time. So the only thought system in the entire cosmos, I would say, is where questioning can be made to a so-called assumed authority. Of course, there's no authority here. Assumed authority is the Mimamsa pattern of thinking. You will question. It must have been the case in the past, but it's no more the case now. And it might be coming back in the future, but it's not necessary that it must always be the case in the same way. That's the Mimamsa thing, where you will not accept it. Where you will not accept it. See, most people in the religious text think what is written in the texts are something like written on stones which can be unchanged. Nothing like that. No one and no system of philosophy in Bharat would ask you to confine to anything. No one will ask you that just because it is in Vedas you have to blindly follow. No one would say. And that spirit of Hindu Dharma, the world had never understood because they are incapable of understanding, just because by virtue of their texts compel them to blindly follow. They can't understand such a thing. Here it's up to you. So nobility is never inherited, can't be inherited. It has to be acquired, like the qualities. The social structure in Sanatana Dharma, the four varnas, they have to be acquired. They are not inherited. Maybe your father is belonging to one varna. He can facilitate the acquisition for you, but he can't acquire it for you and he cannot pass it on to you. So, let's not have nobles and their children continue to be nobles, and lords, their children continue to be lords. Our own nation, the opposition does that. Nehru, his father, his children, and these people blindly follow, whether they have any merits or not. In fact, the least merit they have, the more acceptable they become, because keeping these puppets in front, they can have their ways of things. That's what is happening in Congress. They keep these people in front, and they are under the impression that with this name nobody will object. Nobody will object. That's practically the case. No one will say anything against them, because all those who stick to them are a part of caucus. All those who stick to them are sticking to them because they want certain things for themselves. They're all self-seekers, selfish people. So they support this hereditary. And the poor person, the present man, who somehow started thinking that he is bound to become the Prime Minister. Times are gone, son. Times are gone. He is frustrated, he is suffering, because in all logic which are available to him, he is supposed to be the PM. It has to be so natural and spontaneous, which does not happen. So he has his own sufferings, he has his own problems, and there are people around him making the best of him. That is another irony, and situation is like that. So nobility cannot be inherited. If anyone thinks that nobility can be inherited, then that's a mistake you are doing, and don't do such mistakes. That will only take you to your ruin. So till we meet again with something else. Namaste, Jai Bharat, and Jai Shri Ram.